Why have I never heard of CEMS?
You're probably not reading the right publications or going to the right websites.
Really? Because I've been looking at management education for a while and I didn't find anything so far.
So you haven't read the Financial Times. That's very unusual if you have, if you have been talking about business education.
I guess I've been looking at MBAs.
You might have, and then you wouldn't have heard about CEMS because that's not what we do. We do Masters in Management.
Okay, and in Masters in Management you're rated quite highly.
That's right, yeah.
What's the ranking?
7 this year, and before that we've always been in the top 3.
How can you be ranked if you're not a school?
Financial Times ranks programs. If you look at executive education, you would have TRIUM, 1 MBA, such programs. We're just the only one in the Masters in Management ranking which has more than 1 country associated with it. So we have 29. That's the unusual thing, which no one's tried before.
Is it the same Masters in Management in all 29 locations?
It is. We have a framed curriculum that all 29 schools agree on, and then it is delivered in a very similar way in all 29 countries according to the same schedule.
Is there any difference between one and the next?
There is indeed, yeah, because we want the local specificities, the powers of the individual schools to play out. So we define learning objectives, common learning objectives for the students who graduate from this program. And then in the different schools there is different ways to achieve these learning objectives, which will bring out the didactical strengths of the different locations.
Okay, so do I get a better MIM from one school or another with CEMS?
No, you get a different one.
Is different or better the word an employer would use?
Different is certainly what informed employers would use, because employers are looking for different profiles also, especially when they're multinationals. They have different positions, they have different needs. So diversity is what they're really going to be interested in.
You talk about yourselves as the alliance, these 29 schools. Is there a dark side? I mean, is there a Death Star, like in Star Wars Alliance?
No, it's actually more than 29. We also have 60 companies which are member of this association, and there's also 4 social partners. So it's much more than that. I would even say if there's a light side, if there is the power in this, it would probably even be the social partners and the companies who give us what other alliance wouldn't have.
But you're an alliance against what? Why would you call it alliance?
We're an alliance for something. That is for education without borders and international education, not against.
There are plenty of schools that offer international education, that's what they celebrate. So how is this different?
We're 29 and we're very deeply integrated. So this cooperation of these 29 schools plus the 60 companies to one aim, which is one master program, Master in International Management, is pretty unique. So that you would have so many forces, in the end 100 institutions aligned to one and the same goal, that is pretty unique. And it multiplies the opportunities for international exposure for anyone who participates in this.
I understand why schools might want to be in that sort of community. Why does a company care about internationalizing education?
Because companies have international demands when it comes to hiring people. So if I'm a multinational company especially, and that is what most of our companies are, they would be interested in hiring talent from many, many different regions in the world. And if they can go to just one association as a one-stop shop and hire talent from 30, 60, more than 60 nationalities in one place, and in 29 different contact points, that's a real advantage that we're offering to them.
So does that mean recruitment? The attraction is, if I'm part of the alliance, I'll have a great pool of students to recruit from.
That is certainly for the corporate partners what attracts them most to the alliance, but it is also employer branding. So the companies get exposure to potential students, potential clients, and potential employees in many different countries. And all of our graduates are multipliers who will push forward the contact with those companies in many instances afterwards in their careers. So it's employer branding, it's hiring, and it's also participating to higher education, which brings some of them to us.
When you say your students are multipliers, does that mean they have a lot of children?
No, they multiply information, and they probably have influence on many other people because they will become managers, influential managers. And this means that if they have opinions, if they have actions, they would ideally influence people, which then multiplies the effect of who they are and what they will do.
They won't be managers when they graduate. They're still quite young, aren't they?
They might. It depends on the company and probably also how you define different management levels. But the beauty of the Masters in Management is that you do get influence and you do get responsibility quite early on in your career.
Is that guaranteed?
It's not guaranteed. It depends on who you are and how you perform. But we do as best as we can to train our graduates so that they do possess those capabilities and that potential.
I'd like to explore that a bit later, what happens to graduates. But for now, I'm interested in the structure still. Let's say I'm a country like Jamaica. How do I get into CEMS?
That would be difficult because we would like to have countries represented and the schools that do have a certain size when it comes to their economy. Jamaica must be a wonderful country. I've never been there, but I'm afraid that the University of Kingston would simply just not be able to live up to the kind of academic standard that we're setting for member schools just now without having been there.
There is a big homegrown industry in Jamaica.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. It's maybe not exactly the kind of industry we would be promoting, but must be a fantastic place to go to. Only that for CEMS membership, you do need just a little bit more than just one good industry.
Is the CEMS model then sustainable, given the kind of ups and downs that we see in the markets lately?
Well, look, in 25 years of CEMS, we have only lost one single member ever, academic member.
Okay.
So there must be an appeal to this, and we've recently added 12 schools outside of Europe in the past 5 years. So, numbers speak for this, that there is an appeal and universities want to stay, student numbers grow.
Is there rhyme or reason to the companies? I see food companies, pharmaceutical, consultancy. What's common to the companies, the corporate partners in CEMS?
It's their willingness to contribute. It's their appetite for higher education, because as a CEMS corporate partner, it's not just that you come in at the time of graduation, you grab the best graduates and you pay 23,000 euros for it. When you become a CEMS corporate partner, we expect you to contribute to many aspects of the educational experience. So you could be part of a selection jury, the selection jury who decides which of the students will be admitted to the program. Mm-hmm. You could also become a member of the governance. You could be a member of the CEMS board and take decisions for the Alliance as a corporate representative. And you could certainly also contribute to the educational experience via practical projects, via guest lectures, that your people would be willing to give to the students.
Something that strikes me about people in big businesses is that they work. They're busy. So I imagine the kind of executive that has time to help out on the CEMS jury, picking students, doing a bit of teaching, is probably somebody less important in the corporate world.
Well, that depends on how much importance you assign to HR. I personally believe that companies do not assign enough importance to HR. I personally believe that who you have as a representative of your organization is the most important decision you can actually take as a company. And those that do assign a high degree of importance to HR, for these organizations, these people that work with us are extremely important because it is mostly the HR professionals that we engage with.
I'm thinking about this from the point of view of a student, a CEMS student in the classroom. Somebody from the corporate world, one of the corporate partners, say someone from McKinsey or Barilla, is teaching me today. Is this person teaching me because they're an expert in management theory, or are they teaching me as a practitioner of business?
They are teaching as a practitioner. So in the ideal setup, which is the one that we are promoting, you will have always a professor, a teacher, and then together with a practitioner from a company. And both of them will bring an educational experience to the class where the teacher forms the educational concepts, the foundation that will allow you to reflect. And then the practitioner comes in with the experience that he or she can share with the class. And then you can make something interesting out of this, out of this combination of practice and theory together, if you have a coherent didactical approach.
So to understand, the schools organize the teaching, the corporate partners help with the teaching and the selection, and they're supportive of the program. The students do the learning. What does CEMS actually do?
We facilitate all that. This is about networking. What we do at CEMS is to bring all these fantastic people together who would otherwise never get to know each other. It's much about identifying people who are interested in this kind of international exchange, feeding their appetite to contribute, and then bringing them together for something interesting to happen, which without CEMS would never have happened. So we create the points of contact.
Tell me about your social partners. What does that mean, that they're social?
Social partners are non-for-profits. So you would have CARE, Transparency, Fair Trade Limited, who very much function in our system as the corporate partners do, only that they wouldn't necessarily pay the membership fee, but they are part of our governance. The Director General of CARE, Robert Glasser, is part of our board. And CARE, Fair Trade also participate in the teaching. So they would participate in seminars, in courses, to form also the learning experience of the students. And the important role that they're playing for CEMS is to open our minds to a completely different way of thinking and to the real problems of the world, which management should also contribute to solving.
The social partners are for humanitarian action, fair trade, anti-corruption, and they're working hard for that. On the other hand, the regular corporate partners may be doing things that directly contribute to those problems.
Isn't that a fantastic thing to explore? That's the beauty of CEMS. We bring together people who may, in some other environments, not necessarily talk to each other, but we bring them together to say, okay, we may have conflict, we may have different points of views, let's try to overcome these and to come to interesting learning experience which exactly display these conflicts and try to find positive solutions and positive approaches to that.
My concern is about, say, whitewashing almost, that a corporation that doesn't really give a damn about these things can say it's part of a network that cares, and they can continue polluting or doing non-fair practices, and they can say they're on a board of a couple of nice corporate social responsibility type activities, and they're with CEMS, so they're kosher, they're okay.
I mean, we CEMS are not by default and per se a social enterprise. We are interested in education first and foremost. And the people that come to us, also the corporate representatives, are those that are interested in education. And our board members, the one that represent companies, would certainly be the ones who are caring about these problems and are caring about these issues. I'm not saying that parts of some of these companies may not be creating some of those problems, for sure. But what we do not want to do is to say, you go away, you're a bad partner, we don't want to talk to you. We rather say, let's open a debate. There are, however, companies whose applications we have rejected, as for example, tobacco companies.
Will there be more social partners in CEMS? There are 4 now.
It is absolutely conceivable, but it's also difficult for some of these partners to absorb the kind of international activity level that we require them to be part of when they are a member. So we can only work with organizations who see value created in several countries. And there are not that many non-governmental organizations who do actually see that value and are able to benefit on such a level.
Now more to the entrance to the program. This is a tough program to get accepted to. Does that make you elitist?
Well, it again depends on how you define elite. I mean, elite has such bad connotations, I even dare not say yes. If elite for you is the elite of positive attitude and the elite of international exposure and the elite of forward-thinking people, then I would say yes.
Some of CEMS schools are very, very expensive to study at. They have high tuition fees. Is CEMS for people that can afford those fees?
There's scholarship schemes available, and some of our member schools do actually charge zero. And I would say all of our graduates do receive the means to pay back loans that they may have made after graduation because they get good jobs. So I wouldn't agree that it's a rich kids program. It's a program for intelligent, bright people. And if you have to take a certain degree of risk to take a loan, our graduates are certainly willing to take that, our students, because they know that they will be able to pay back.
Are there any costs that I'll incur when I join CEMS or to be part of CEMS as a student?
That really depends on which of our partner schools you're enrolled to. And that is because educational systems and laws governing education are very different in the countries, and we cannot and would not interfere in that. Meaning that in some countries you're not allowed to charge for higher education, so CEMS will not cost you anything. And in other places, to survive, in order to survive, you will have to take a market fee, and then CEMS will go with that.
So it's not completely a fair system, that somebody who lives in one country may have a harder time to do CEMS than someone else.
It is a completely fair system because fewer and fewer of our students do actually enroll in the country of their citizenship. So students are free to make up their choices. And if I take, for example, the Germans, who make up roughly 16% of our student body, in Germany, higher education is free. And many of these students, for whatever reason, be it adventure, choose to enroll in other CEMS schools, which would be tuition fee paying, because they made an informed choice. That is what they want.
So there are some easy ways to get into CEMS and some hard ways.
There is offers of different partners that will entail different experiences of CEMS, and you make an informed choice. It's not about easy and hard. The selection criteria and the selection processes are pretty much similar everywhere in CEMS. If you then want to pay or can pay tuition or not is a very personal choice, which is based on the educational experience you want. Maybe also your purse, yes. But you have options to enter CEMS and not pay tuition fee. Is that it is what is most important for you.
Is there a best school in the CEMS network? One that's oversubscribed more than others, for example?
Well, all schools are oversubscribed, but we have a system of quality assurance in CEMS, our own system of quality assurance internally, and we take 2 points of information from this. And one is to identify the schools which need the help of the network to grow even more in quality. But the other is to get the best practices in the network, bring those best practices forward, and then every year at the instance of the graduation, we do actually give an award to the CEMS School of the Year to reward very good practice based on student satisfaction surveys. And last year that was University of St. Gallen in 2013, was awarded CEMS School of the Year.
Is it true that some CEMS programs, some of the Masters in Management that do CEMS are 1 year and some are 2 year?
That's right. And again, that goes back to the choices that you make in your educational framework, in the legal system that you operate in, and also in the market. In some of the CEMS schools outside of Europe, a 2-year master's is currently not an interesting proposition because the opportunity cost of pursuing education following your bachelor's is too high. So these schools have opted for a 1-year master's and a 1-year CEMS.
In terms of quality control, though, does it not mean that if some courses are 1 year, some are 2 years, some are from amazing, famous universities and some are not, that not all CEMS students are equally good?
You would be surprised to compare the result of our internal quality assurance with rankings. Some of the schools that may not appear in the front places in rankings everywhere do actually do a fantastic job in CEMS, simply because they invest every single best resource that they have into this program. One of the best examples for this is our member school in Portugal, Nova, who has won the CEMS School of the Year award several times in a row, simply because this is the most prestigious program in the entire university.
Between doing CEMS and a double degree, why would I choose CEMS?
You would choose CEMS because the contact possibilities internationally are times 29. In any given study year in CEMS, which is 1 year, you could do 2 terms abroad, that's right, but you could have a seminar in a 3rd school. You could participate to the graduation ceremony in a 4th school. You could go to a career forum in a 5th school. You could take single program elements of a week or a day that you would accredit from a 6th school. You could go to a student event at a 7th school and to a corporate CEMS event at an 8th school. And you could do so because you're a CEMS student and you're part of a network.
That's subject to my own budget, I guess.
That's right. Though, of course, within Europe, certainly, there is low-cost travel. So you have plenty of opportunities to choose from. And sometimes the companies might also subsidize some of these events.
In the FT then, in the FT ranking, are you competing with your own partners?
We are.
And you win?
Win. We end up somewhere else, and that's fair enough.
Okay, just do they never get upset with you?
Well, they are our stakeholders. They want this. That's the beauty of CEMS. I mean, it's cooperation in competition. It's like Star Alliance or SkyTeam. These companies also compete, but they choose to share their slots because they think that together they're stronger. It's like when you have a sum which is more than, or something which is more than the sum of its parts.
I don't understand what intercultural means. Surely culture is a very nation-specific thing. There's a French culture or a German culture. I can have a bit of each of them, but to be intercultural, I have no idea what that is.
Well, there's good research about this. So I'm sure that you and I could read things that more intelligent people have said about this. But my view on this is that when you, again, go that extra mile, expose yourself to different cultures, you create something new, something third, which is then intercultural, which means that in yourself, something happens to you. Because you've exposed yourself, you've gone beyond your own culture, and you try to embrace a second culture, which then creates a third, which is you, having embraced the second culture, now becoming intercultural, and going beyond your horizon, expanding your horizon.
What if there's no such thing as culture? How do I prove it's there?
Go somewhere else. Go somewhere where you, in the first start, would never want to go to. I don't know what that is. Go to that place and try to throw overboard all your preconceptions that you had about that place. Try to look at it without any preconceptions and see what it does to you. Try actually seeing if you can even do it. And then you learn something about yourself.
I speak a truly global language, English. Shouldn't that be enough to get through this master's degree?
Well, that's not what our clients tell us, the corporate partners. They tell us that, especially when you look at consulting, you need to speak the language of the client. And that could be many other languages in the world which we teach and which we select students from. Our graduates all have capability in 3 languages. So when you do business, you will probably be more successful if you do speak the language of your clients.
Thinking of the example of Bocconi, for example, when you study CEMS, that's normally the time that's reserved for electives, for specialisms. If you do CEMS, do you go on a more generalist track?
Yes, you do, though you could also consider international management to be your specialization, because the specific courses that deal with how being exposed to the global market affects you doing business, for example, and that is the kind of specialization that our students will pursue.
Who cares if I put CEMS on my CV?
Recruiters do, more and more so, because the recruiters that do know CEMS, especially the ones which are corporate partners, have a track record of hiring our graduates, and they know why. And once they've hired one graduate, they actually want more. There's some corporate partners who even start to having policies of not only hiring CEMS graduates because there's been so many, because we've been so successful, simply because they value the qualities that our graduates have.
So in the end, I'm torn, because the traditional philosophy is I must pick the best brand at the price that I can pay for the kind of course that I want to do. Is it going to be more important the brand of my school or the CEMS brand?
It depends on the kind of career that you're pursuing. If you are pursuing a career in the country where you graduated, or maybe in the country of your citizenship, and you know that international exposure is not necessarily what you're interested in, then you probably do not need CEMS as a brand and as a degree. I would still claim and argue that you would need it as an educational and personal experience, but you would maybe not benefit so much from the brand. If, however, you know already that you will work for a company that is going to be internationally active, or you even know that you really want to have an international career and move, then you certainly will benefit from the CEMS brand as much as you will benefit from the learning experience of the CEMS program.
One brand that you don't have is MBA. Given that there are also business education courses, wouldn't it be great for CEMS to partner with MBAs?
It's a deliberate choice that we've made to only have Masters in Management programs. Also because the MBA market is probably so competitive that this kind of cooperation wouldn't have flown right away. Masters in Management are on the rise, but we all together as CEMS schools offering Masters in Management are working together to increase the visibility of this segment of business education, Masters in Management. And at this very moment, which is a very interesting one, where we see Masters in Management on the rise in the US, in Asia, in Latin America, it's good for us all to work together to this one common good of raising awareness for Masters in Management, which really carries the corporation very strongly.
Isn't the MIM essentially an MBA for people who are bad at maths?
No, I don't think so. It's about choices that you make in your career and choices you make in your life. If you are the type of person who thinks after the bachelor's that, is this enough? Have I really delved enough into that knowledge available to myself? Have I differentiated my profile and myself enough to be successful on the workplace? And the answer is no. Then you should actually do a Masters in Management, because you think that there's more for you to be gained from knowledge. There's more for you to be gained from additional exposure of a 1 or 2 year program in management. If you are the one who says, look, I have a bachelor's in my pocket, I want to go out there, make money, make a career, do it. Great. And then 5 years after, you may discover that you actually need a career change, want to do an MBA, and you actually have the $50,000, $60,000, $80,000, do it. But that's a different kind of approach and different kind of choice.
The really hard things about CEMS, from a student point of view, are getting into the program. You've got to have that multilingual international approach. The things that employers love about CEMS come from that same profile, the multilingual, multinational approach, and obviously being very smart. Aren't you just picking people who would already succeed anyway? What's the value added of CEMS if you only take very bright, talented, multilingual people?
Well, one is the network that you get when you are in the program. So you get a network of people on a personal level, but also on a professional level. Then the learning experience is quite often still a transformational experience for these young people. I mean, remember, Master of Management students will not be much older than maybe 22 years old, still very young, still very far to go on the maturity side of things. So what we do see in those 1 or 2 years of the Masters in Management, and certainly in the CEMS year, is that transformational experience to maturity, to becoming a grown-up, responsible person who's willing and able to embrace responsibility for other people, as a manager of people, and as someone who will gain his or her ground in creating value for a company. So selection is still very important. That's evident. And that's why we invest so much in selection. And beyond what you just said, intellectual capital and willingness to embrace internationality, we do actually test their attitude, their values, their soft skills, which is not necessarily something you find very often in an educational program.
I've been accepted to CEMS. Can I get kicked out?
Yes, you could. If we did a mistake in assessing your value set, if you behaved in a way which was inappropriate, you might be kicked out of CEMS. But that, for legal reasons, would have to be in the frame of the national legislations.
Do any of the CEMS graduates end up working for social partners?
Yes, some do. More of them, as far as I know, actually do work for governmental organizations. We have quite a few graduates who work for several UN divisions across the world who do also need that kind of international profile. But some have also gone in the direction of social entrepreneurship, which we're pretty proud of, to launch initiatives that would combine real needs that the world has, that people have, with managerial thinking, which is an extremely important and valuable concept.
One thing I can't do with CEMS, you don't call it exchange, do you? You call it
term abroad.
Term abroad. One thing I can't do is study in America. Isn't America the home of management studies? Aren't you missing a trick by not being there?
America is certainly been the most influential country in business education in the past 60 years. We are looking at potential partners in the US, only that our criteria for membership are so strict that we will only work with one of the most reputed institutions in the US. And since we are into the business of Masters in Management, there are not many players in that field in the US so far. This said, however, 2014 will see Dartmouth, Kellogg, Michigan, Duke, and other players, Cornell eventually, enter that market. So I do see the prospect of a US CEMS partner in the not too distant future. Then again, if you allow me to say that, I also believe that the future that we're heading into is going to be a multipolar one. We see that not only business education, but more importantly, economies are shifting towards emerging markets. There's China, there's India, Russia, Brazil, Indonesia, other countries coming up which play an even more important role in the future. The US will always remain there, but maybe it's not going to have that leadership role anymore as it had. So if we're entering a multipolar world, that's going to be very interesting, because that means that our profiles will be needed more and more, because they understand the challenges that are ahead of us.
What has the MIM got that the MBA doesn't have?
It's unique. There's no project. It's unique. There's no program like this in the world. There's no consortium, there's no alliance, there's no academic program which brings together 29 schools on equal footing plus 60 corporate partners.
No, but not CEMS, but the MIM as an intellectual activity.
Well, that's exactly what is going to happen in the MIM. You're going to be exposed to so many different experiences. And the one thing which sets us apart is that there's actually no one dominating culture from which it all derives. The one school which will, with its educational culture, influence what and how, especially, you're going to be taught. When you enter the MIM, it's basically you get a passport for international exposure with no dominating culture. The world is our home.
You're doing then something quite unique with CEMS. Why do it? There's so many programs bustling and jostling for our attention. Why do it? Why stick your flag on this MIM and these 29 schools? Why do something unique and different?
Because we're successful. And students love this. You know, graduates' profiles are highly being sought after by corporate partners. And it's great fun because this, whatever we do, whatever we try, it's never been tried before. So also for me personally, working for this association means that whatever I will be doing every day never been tried before. So it's a great venture we're in, really. If you ask for the foundations of how this all started and actually why this all started, this goes back to the idea of European integration, overcoming borders, overcoming the divide of the Iron Curtain and the Cold War. And our founders, Esade, Bocconi, I should say, University of Cologne, had that idea back in '88, saying, look, we want to go for education beyond borders because education should really be freedom of mind and should not be national. To benefit and to develop yourself as a human being, you will benefit much more if you see different points of views, which could be different cultural point of views that will enrich your learning experience. And it seems still to hold true in 2014.
Okay, so in a nutshell, if I'd never heard of CEMS and you met me on the subway and you were standing on one leg and you were trying to pick up your briefcase, what would you tell me about CEMS?
Well, if you really want to have an experience which you couldn't have anywhere else, getting to know the world and actually getting to know yourself and getting to develop yourself in directions that you've never even dreamt of, then choose CEMS.
Is it about just me or is it about the team or the spirit or the community?
Well, when you pursue education, it is in the first place about yourself. You want to develop yourself and you also want to maximize your chances in your career. Then again, your learning experience will seldom be alone because group work and group learning experience is very important. And when you are in your workplace, unless you are pursuing very specific jobs that our graduates do not pursue, you will also have to function in a team, most definitely. But your education, you obviously get it for yourselves individually. You want to transform yourself into someone else.
So, and the question I want to ask again, just to check I understand, it almost sounds like CEMS will look like another study program. I'll still be in one of these 29 universities. I'll be in 2 of them. But what makes CEMS not just a golden stamp on my certificate?
Your educational experience will be in a cohort of CEMS students. It will be with exclusive contacts to CEMS corporate partners, and it will also be linked to the alumni community of CEMS graduates, which means that beyond just only your learning experience, and also this learning experience, both learning experience and personal experience, will be shaped by a very special group of people that you're having it with. And this learning experience and also this creation of a network is something that in its specificity you would not get in any of these local programs, because it's the group of students we select to be in this program which also shapes this experience as something very special. I'll give you an example to explain what I mean. I am a German by citizenship. There is 80 million Germans. I would assume that with 70 million Germans, I would probably not have any common ground beyond the language and the citizenship. And even on the language side, I'm not pretty sure with all the dialects there. When I very personally, me, Roland Siegers, go to CEMS meetings, go to CEMS alumni, go and meet CEMS corporate partners and students, with 90% of them, I have a feeling that there's common ground that we share. And that is because we would share values, we would share experiences, and it couldn't be more irrelevant what citizenship these people will hold. They're all CEMS. So the the level of discussions, the level of interaction that you're going to have, that I'm going to have with these people, is going to be immediately on a very high level, on a very pleasant and interesting level, because of this being part of CEMS.
Could CEMS become a country one day?
Well, if we will have the United Nations of the world one day, maybe, but that's not what is in the interest of CEMS. The interest of CEMS is probably to overcome national affiliation and make it less relevant.
So when the revolution comes, CEMS is out, along with all the countries?
No, when a revolution really comes, and it's a revolution to us all becoming citizens of the world, CEMS will be the leader of that revolution.
But if everyone is, then what will you be doing it for?
No, we'll lead the way into that it be a positive development and a good one for the world, and not a bad one.
Do you have a flag?
Yes, this one here, 2 C's.
Which is on your onesie?
Which is on our onesie, that's right, the Strampler, as we call it in German, for the kids that will be CEMSies in 22 years to come.
Is CEMS a breeding program?
Well, of course. I mean, if what I just said is true about networking, that does create personal bonds, and these personal bonds might actually become marriages when you share values. It's the theory of marriages, which we would have to explore. So if common interest is what makes marriages, and marriages and partnerships is what makes kids, then we probably are a breeding program. I don't have data though.
No, but it's interesting, because a marriage is indeed a proof of a partnership. And if CEMS is producing marriages, that would indicate that you're doing what you say.
Well, probably we do. I would have to do some research on this though.
I'd be happy to help.
I don't have the figures.